Welcome to the Purple Political Breakdown. How's it going? How's your day been? And today I'm going to be reacting to a full hour video of Destiny versus Cenk. I don't like to do these long reactions, but depending on the conversation, I'm willing to do like a full hour, to be honest. And this is one of them. This is one of them, 100%. So let's dive right into it. Like and subscribe. Let's lock in.
There.
Oops, did I do it again? So, what are they trying to do? They're trying to have plausible deniability for vengeance. Listen, look at me spitting on your ancestors. I can't take it. I'm going to say something potentially offensive.
Potentially millions more.
Destiny, do you know that?
No, we didn't. No, we didn't. Their leader killed himself, and the only thing that you want is the short-term minimization of those deaths. Even when it comes to the long-term, actual.
Okay, all right, then that's the best we can do.
Okay, is this a USB mic, or does it have like a crazy XLR big output? Does it plug right into a computer?
Okay, by the way, just before we continue all of this, what time do you need to
is
go?
the best for people to understand.
Top of the hour, and I know we're making.
Okay, let's just go
Okay,
then.
so
It's okay.
let's
It's
go.
okay. Yeah, that's fair. That's okay.
No, but
Okay,
thanks for
brilliant.
trying to fix it, Destiny.
No,
I
you're
appreciate it.
No problem. Let's get going.
It's interesting that Destiny and Cenk get on these like very heated debates, but they're both like on the left. I'm curious to see what Destiny thinks about Cenk running for president. I don't know. Let's dive into it.
Okay, so today I'm hosting a debate between Democratic presidential candidate Cenk and popular live streamer and political commentator Destiny. In this debate, we're going to focus on the future of the war rather than last time. So this time we're going to focus on the future of the war, potential escalation with the Houthis, how to finish the war, and long-term peace. Because we've only got right now around 45 minutes, instead of asking you a lot of questions, I'm going to ask you one question, and hopefully just that question will try and get that finished. So from where we are right now, what is a viable and realistic solution you can give, number one, for the war to end, and number two, for long-term peace? And keep in mind the Houthis and what's the two-state solution with Bibi. Destiny, can you start, and then we'll go to Cenk.
Yeah, I mean, you can get very broad, you can get very specific. I think two really important things need to happen. The first thing is Hamas has to be eliminated or decapitated so that they're no longer functional in the Gaza Strip, because I think that
I'm sorry, I have to run at
with a group like
1.25,
Hamas is just
bro.
not feasible,
It's an
and I don't expect
hour
Israel to do
long.
it.
What do you want
And
me
then
to
the second
do?
thing that
You
needs to
feel
happen
me?
is Palestinians have to be able to hold new elections, regardless of how those might turn out. They need to elect leadership because Israel needs somebody that they can negotiate with and somebody that can negotiate on behalf of Palestinians to start us back on some kind of road to some lasting solution or peace. Like there has to, those two things have to happen. Yeah.
Okay, so just so 2 points. First of all, how is that including a two-state solution?
Personally, I think that's the most likely resolution that both sides can agree to. I don't think a one-state solution is anything that Israel would ever agree to. I don't think that'll ever happen.
So how's that going to happen when Bibi's in charge right now?
Well, I mean, if Hamas is eliminated and if the Palestinians elect new leadership, I think that with the reduction of attacks from the Palestinians, I think that there would be a lot of mounting pressure on Israel to actually move towards a two-state solution or move towards some kind of permanent peace process. But as long as they can always point the finger at Hamas and blame them and say, like, well, look, these guys don't want peace. They just want to shoot rockets at us all day. That's going to be the number one justification that Israel can use to kind of indefinitely stave off peace.
And some interesting information for the people who are listening or watching this video. This probably is gonna come out on Tuesday, to be honest. Is that currently the U.S. State Department is working with the idea from our side of the aisle of recognizing Palestine as a official sovereign state. So if Hamas is completely eliminated and the U.S. and other countries around Israel also recognize Palestine, then we could finally end this honestly ridiculous conflict, to be honest.
Plans, right? Look at October 7th is going to buy them at least a year or two in terms of never even having to think about peace plans, because they can just say, well, look at October 7, look at October 7, look at October 7.
And just one last question. I apologize for taking this question for you, Cenk, because I know you would ask this. How is it possible to say just eradicate Hamas? At what point is eradication? Is it possible to even eradicate Hamas?
I don't know how the military defines like a group being defunct, but I think right now Israel, the estimate is they've eliminated 20 to 30% of fighters. I'm sure there's some percentage where once you've eliminated enough, they've effectively lost their ability to govern effectively. And I don't know what that number exactly looks like. I don't think Israel has put out that number exactly. Maybe that's 50, 60, 70%. Maybe it's just when Hamas leadership leaves, or they've been so undermined that the public wants, different elections, or whatever. I don't know if the specifics of that matters much, but whatever that specific is, that goal has to be accomplished. Yeah.
Okay, Cenk.
Okay, so there's a couple of different ways to approach it. So first of all, I'm going to start with what obviously is not going to work, and then I'm going to go to things that actually will work. So first of all, this idea of eliminating Hamas, it's comical. It's comical. It's ridiculous. So they've killed 27,000 people on the way to killing 20 to 30% of Hamas, according to IDF. Now, no one believes those numbers. It's propaganda. But okay, let's take it as true, though. Okay, so about a quarter of Hamas is killed, according to IDF, and they want to eradicate it, decapitate it, kill the rest of them. So does that mean if we kill 27,000 Palestinians already, we're going to kill at least 100,000? And so maybe, as you know, Destiny said, maybe there's a tipping point where you kill like, hey, 55% of Hamas, and then you could say that they're done. How anyone verifies any of this is impossible to know. It's basically Netanyahu saying, yeah, I'm satisfied with how.
So Cenk is trying to make the argument that the only way we can truly eliminate Hamas is if we kill a lot of Palestinians, and it's not worth it's not worth the lives. It's what it sounds like to me, anyway.
How many Palestinians I've murdered. And he's never going to be satisfied. One, because of his nature, and two, because if the war
Which is
ends,
honestly
there's accountability,
a fair
and
position.
he immediately loses power.
We need people
So
like
he never,
Cenk who
ever
cares
wants
about
the war to
lives.
end.
Like,
as long as Netanyahu's in charge, we have no
I get the
chance of
logical
ever
point of
getting
view,
peace,
but like,
ever. He's
if
the
we don't
worst
have
partner
people
for
who actually
peace in
care about
history.
the
He
lives
proudly
themselves,
declares that he
then we won't ever. We won't ever come together. People like Cenk, and I'm coming at this as a person that is very similar to, maybe I won't say this. I don't know what Destiny thinks about human lives in particular. I think about things in a very logical manner. So I understand what needs to be done, but people like Cenk are more valuable in kind of caring about the life at the individual level. They're more valuable than people like. I would argue they're more valuable. I guess it's hard to really say who's more valuable, the person who cares about individual lives, or the person that is willing to do what needs to be done based off the situation. Hard to say. I think they both actually have value. I'd say it's like 50-50.
block the Palestinian state and will do so again. He is by far a worse partner for peace than even Hamas. He's also a bigger terrorist than Hamas. We can come back and discuss that if you like. But Hamas has hinted in an earlier time, several years ago, that they could do peace and that they could actually recognize Israel's right to exist, which of course they're going to. But anyway, that's another topic as well. So, so this idea of permanent war bringing peace and security is irrational. It's maximum irrational. It's never happened. It's never going to happen. And it's intended so that it doesn't happen for the political power of one man, Netanyahu. Now, it's not just one man. It's the right wing in Israel that right now it can't say anything but blood. And so they just want to kill as many Palestinians as humanly possible while pretending to get Hamas.
I mean, I understand that the right wing part of Israel is terrible. The extreme right wing. I mean, any extreme is terrible, to be honest. How much power does that extreme right wing have? I guess that's the question.
Which, again,
right?
there's almost no evidence of a significant percentage of Hamas being killed. And here's one piece of evidence that everybody can wrap their minds around, which is they said that they were murdering all these Palestinians in order to kill Hamas and get the hostages back. But has the war led to getting back one single hostage in terms of a military operation? No, none, zero. What is the one?
Well, as of right now, Israel is working with a 3-step plan to bring in hostages. The 3-step plan is to have a ceasefire, and they want to start out by bringing like the men, women, and women, children, and the elderly. And then step 2 is bringing in, I believe step 1 is the children and women. I think step 2 is the elderly. Step 3 is, I think, female soldiers. I believe. All I know is I talked about it on my podcast, and they are working on this plan. So that doesn't really help.
One thing that got some of the hostages back was negotiation and a deal. It's super obvious. Now you could argue, hey, we wouldn't have gotten as good a deal if we hadn't murdered as many Palestinians as we did. I think that's the argument of a butcher. And not true. But we can again debate that. Okay, but if you think that permanently, and I'm not saying that Destiny thinks this, I'm just saying generically, if you think that permanent occupation is going to bring Israel peace and security, you're totally detached from reality. No people that are occupied, Palestinian or otherwise, are ever going to bow their heads and say, we now love our oppressors. We love them, and we will be your dogs and servants forever. It's not going to happen. They're always going to fight back. The Chinese will fight back. The Kenyans will fight back. The Palestinians will fight back. And then we'll call them terrorists until the end of time, and we'll say, oh, we murder more of them, murder more of them. But it's never, ever going to end. So you must end the occupation if you want peace. There is no second solution. In fact, this idea of a one-state solution, both on the Palestinian side and the Israeli side, should be dropped immediately. That is a barbarous idea. It has no chance of success. It's ridiculous, and all it'll do is drag out this conflict forever and ever. And I say that to the Palestinians just as forcefully as I say to the Israelis. So the Israelis' one-state solution would be, well, we occupy you forever, we take all of your land, we give it to religious zealot settlers who will murder you for the rest of time. That's a totally untenable solution, obviously. The Palestinians are like, hey, let's have a one-state solution, and we'll outvote the Israelis/Jews, and then we'll rule, and then we'll make them the minority, and we'll oppress them. They're never going to go for that, nor should they. That's crazy. No, that's never going to work. And look, Palestinians get really mad at me when I say right of return's a pipe dream. What, you're going to go back and get your houses in Israel? like decades later? No, look, even if I think that is the most just solution in the world, and would be a ton of justice to that, it doesn't matter because it's never, ever, ever, ever going to happen. And if you hold on to that dream, it actually kills the dream that is tenable for a Palestinian state. So if you're a Palestinian and go, oh, I'm positive we're going to get a one-state solution, you're on Mars or Venus or some other galaxy. Never going to happen. Okay, it must be a two-state solution. And finally, we get to, yes, but this particular conflict, how do we end it? You always end it with peace, by definition. So you can't murder your way to peace. And I get it, there's wars and a lot of people die, and at the end you get to peace. But that's the point. At the end, you must get to peace. So there is no peace through endless war. So, and in Israel's case, we've talked about this before, they always say like, those dirty Muslims. They don't say dirty Muslims, they mean dirty Muslims. They'll never listen. They're savages. They love violence, right? So that's why a peace deal with these Muslims never worked, except the peace deal with Egypt completely worked. The peace deal, the Abraham Accords totally worked. Every peace deal's totally worked. And so what hasn't worked is permanent occupation and permanent war. So you got to get to two states. And the 2 years from now is insanity.
I need to
insanity,
bro.
You'll have more bloodshed, more death on both sides. It'll spiral out of control. It'll get even worse and worse. How many people, Jesus Christ, how many Palestinians can we murder? Okay. So you must do the two-state solution right now.
I'm curious to see, like, does he want the peace deal done while Hamas is still in power? Like, I feel like maybe Destiny's going to go over that.
Now, the people that you do it with is not Hamas, it's Palestinian Authority. You go to Palestinian Authority, who doesn't have a lot of credibility right now in the West Bank. Why? Because they have worked so well with Israel that a lot of Palestinians think that they're collaborators, okay? So if you say you can't even work with the Palestinian Authority, that's saying I don't want peace. And you could give me Mother Teresa on the other side, and I'll pretend she's a terrorist, and I'll never, ever make peace because I don't want peace. And that is the right-wing Israeli position, but not the entire Israeli position. Okay, so Palestinian Authority, get the two-state solution, have a Palestinian state, bring the Palestinian Authority into Gaza, do not have the occupiers, Israel, try to tame the people of Palestine or Gaza. Have the Palestinian Authority actually be the government there, and then eventually lead to elections. I agree with Destiny on that. But don't do that right away. Have the Palestinian Authority establish itself in Gaza. And you say, well, Hamas is not going to accept that. They're going to fight back. Well, first of all, they're fighting back against the Palestinian Authority and not Israel. If you're Israel, that's already a win. Okay? And then secondly, they get to say to the Palestinian people, what has Hamas brought you? Nothing but grief and strife and death and destruction. What did we bring you? A Palestinian state. You're free. That is a very compelling argument. And it could get the Palestinian Authority to bring Gaza Strip under control and get to peace and security for both sides.
How do you envision that happening under Bibi Netanyahu?
Impossible. Israel has to call elections and throw out that butcher of Israel, and they have to throw out Ben Gvir and all those butchers. They're avowed terrorists. Ben Gvir is a convicted terrorist. He worships terrorists. He talks about ethnically cleansing Gaza and driving them into the desert. So look, Israel. Sorry, but it's not too much to ask for you to not elect butchers, people who are convicted terrorists who openly talk about ethnically cleansing the Palestinians and murdering them ad nauseum. So yes.
Is Netanyahu
anywhere near moderate in Israel? Someone I don't even
that
care
he wants to
Yitzhak
ethnically
Rabin was not moderate. Yitzhak Rabin did terrorism before Israel started, but he got to peace. I would have done a peace deal with Rabin in a second. We were going to. It was going to be great. So anyone who will actually do a peace deal, it doesn't have to be on my terms. It just has to exist.
I'm just trying to work out how it goes. So the first step to peace, as far as you're saying, is to get rid of Bibi Netanyahu and then have a two-state solution. But how will you even get rid of Bibi Netanyahu? I'm just trying to work. Are you saying America? So if you're saying the war is never going to end, then how's that going to happen?
Yeah, no, Netanyahu never wants the war to end, so Israel has to throw his ass out. There's no way around it.
How are they going to do that?
Yeah, call an election. So, look, I don't know the internal dynamics of his cabinet. Obviously, it's a parliamentary system.
Yeah, I don't know how you're just going to call for an election. I'm curious. Hey, Siri, when is the next Israel election? Next Israel election or next Israel legislative election is October 27th, 2026. That's a bit of a time from now. Interesting.
It's not a presidential system. If it was the American system, you don't have a choice. You have to wait till the next election if it's 3-4 years later. But in a parliamentary system, if a certain set of steps happen, you can call an election right away. So whatever those steps are,
Okay.
the Israeli people have to demand that the Israeli government represent them and get there. But if they don't, and they say, we just want to kill Palestinians forever, look, now you're going to get super mad if you're on the Israeli side, but don't come back and go, I can't believe they tried to kill us. We were butchering them. We killed 25 times as many of them as they killed of us. And we said, we're never going to stop. We're going to kill another 25 times more and another 25 times more. And we're going to be.
Was Cenk trying to make the argument that the Palestinians were justified in the October 7th attacks? Is that the argument he's trying to make?
100 times worse than Hamas, and we're going to occupy them forever. But golly, I can't believe they attacked us. Come on. Come on. I hate the attacks. I condemn the attacks. It's not productive. It's not the right way to go. My heart breaks.
See, I think I'm starting to know people cover their bases. So this is a Cenk covering the bases. Yes, the attack sucked, but based on how you were phrasing the actions of the Palestinians in response, or more so based on how you were phrasing the reactions to the Israelis from an attack, you make it seem like that Hamas was justified in attacking innocent civilians. Let's be very clear. From what I've seen, innocent civilians were killed on October 7th. I think there were actually like a group of peacemakers that were killed on October 7th that were, for the most part, trying to bridge the gap. So there weren't even IDF or technically in Israel. I know there are peacekeepers. I don't know exactly their affiliation, but I know they were trying to broker peace between Palestine and Israel. So the people who got attacked very specifically were the last people who deserved to be attacked from what happened. So Cenk, yes, you're covering your bases by saying, I know the attack. I know that the attack was horrible. They shouldn't have done that. But you're justifying the action to an extent. I'll be honest, you're justifying the angry response to an extent. That's what it sounds like to me. I'll be honest.
For the civilians, but if you're talking to the other side saying I should get to butcher you to the end of time and you should shut up about it and accept that you're my servants, it's preposterous. Then you should expect 10,000 acts of terrorism, because it's never going to stop.
Okay, so just
whether
one last
we want it or not, and I don't want it, but that's just reality.
Just one last question before we go to Destiny, and just still trying to understand your position. Your whole plan is relying on getting Bibi out of office and creating a two-state solution. You're saying the way to get Bibi out of office is by his cabinet kicking him out and doing a new election. But his cabinet is supportive of the war, so I'm not sure how this is a realistic path to peace.
So look, it's on the Israeli people because
but they're supportive of the war.
Yeah, so they have to put pressure on the Israeli cabinet. They have to. If they don't, like I said, then they shouldn't be surprised. They shouldn't be heartbroken. They shouldn't be anything. As long as you keep Netanyahu and this right-wing government in office in Israel, that is the Israeli people saying, we don't mind terrorism. We don't mind war. We don't want peace and security. We just want to kill more Palestinians. Okay, if that's your decision, that's what you're going to get. And it doesn't matter what I think about it. It doesn't matter how immoral I think it is on both sides. That is just a fact of life. That is how humanity works. They're never going to be your dogs. They're not going to do it. They're always going to fight back, because that's how every human responds. You must throw out the right-wing government of Israel. If you don't, you're never going to get the peace for Israel, let alone the Palestinians.
Why? Just as a real quick follow-up, okay? Why is the onus more on Israel to throw out their government than it is on the Palestinians to throw out theirs?
Because the Palestinians have no pathway to throwing out Hamas. So if there was an election for Hamas or Palestinian Authority or anyone else, I'd be saying the same exact thing to the Palestinians. Are you guys nuts? You got to throw out Hamas.
Wait, there is a pathway to do it. It could be through elections, or it could be through like just refusing to.
Yeah, didn't the Palestinians vote in Hamas? I think they voted in them as the leadership. I'm pretty sure. Maybe they're
bow
gonna
to
go
Hamas's
over
rule, but they don't. Hamas has
No,
Hamas has
that's the
very,
quote.
very, very popular support amongst the Palestinian people. You're talking about having Abbas and the PA lead them. Pretty sure like 90% of Palestinians, like 92% of the West Bank want Abbas to resign. And the next most popular politician, Marwan Barghouti, or however you pronounce his name, that dude's like in jail, serving consecutive life sentences because of activities that he had in the Second Intifada, which is the reason why, by the way, Israelis are so radicalized. As many excuses as we make for the Palestinians, as like, well, of course they're going to respond this way. Look at all the violence. Well, where did all the right-wing governments of Israel start coming from? In response to the violence of the Second Intifada. And you mentioned about how like
the occupation.
sure, and you can say that, but like you just said that like, well, there are going to be 10,000 terrorist attacks. There already were hundreds of terrorist attacks from 2000 to 2004. That happened all throughout Israel.
So,
Well, sure, but and the occupation was in response to an invasion from neighboring countries. And I mean, like you can play that. You can go back. Yeah.
That was like 58 years ago. It was 56, 54. How long ago was that? But we're still pretending that that's what the occupation's about.
Well, I mean, that's where it came from, right? That's when Israel originally invaded.
No, they just like occupying them. Keep it real. They like, hey, we get to be the powerful finally. And look, I get it. It's like
Wait, if they just like occupying, then why did they give the Sinai Peninsula back to?
I don't know why Cenk likes to apply emotions to a very serious situation. Like, not apply emotions, but apply very simplistic, humanistic feelings about a circumstance to an entire kind of political structure or political situation. It's not as simple as I want to occupy you. That simplifies it, and it's kind of nasty work. I'll be honest.
Egypt for peace.
No. So, by the way, that's a great question. And Israel, who is the they? There is no they who is Jewish or they who is Israeli. There's a wide range of opinions. They is the right-wing government of Israel. So thank you for that clarification, right? The Netanyahus of the world. On the other hand, if the right wing, like Yitzhak Rabin and like Ariel Sharon, say, "Hey, you know what? I want to do something different. I'll take it. I don't need any change. I don't care about your domestic policy, etc." In terms of Hamas popularity and Palestinian Authority popularity, the reason Mahmoud Abbas is so unpopular is because he works with the Israelis 100%. If you say that guy's not a partner for peace, then you don't want peace. But he has no credibility because he's never brought anything back for all that working with Israel. But hold on, let me finish real quick. If you were to say, yes, you were super frustrated with me because all I ever did was work with Israel, but at the end of it, ta-da, I got the Palestinian state, then of course, not everybody, not overnight, but tons of people go, oh, okay, that was his plan and he delivered, and now we're free. Then we love Mahmoud Abbas.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna. He can't create that state without the Palestinian support. Like he can't serve as a representative, realistically, a representative of the Palestinian people if he has none of the support of the Palestinian people. If Israel were to try to negotiate with Abbas, basically as a sole human being to try to create some government, there would be massive uprisings, there would be violence against Israel's, violence against settlers, violence against IDF. This would happen, and then I think people would be on the news saying like, well, of course, why are they trying to negotiate with Abbas? This guy isn't even a leader of the Palestinians. He's literally refused to hold elections in this place for almost like 2 decades. Like, why would they even try to negotiate with this guy? He doesn't represent the Palestinians. He's just a dog of Israel. He's just a servant to the IDF, like, which is what Palestinians right now currently think of him. This idea that like,
I can answer it.
Okay.
So look, Destiny, if you eliminate every single person as either a terrorist or a collaborator, and hence not a partner for peace, you'll have purposely eliminated every partner for peace. So conveniently, you can continue the occupation for another 56 years, pretending it's about the invasion from Jordan like 2.5 million years ago. So that is a pathway to no end, right? On the other hand, if Abbas were to get into those negotiations, you think the Palestinians would say, no, we don't want 2 states.
Yes.
No, let's do more terrorism because we don't like Abbas.
Yes, that's what all the popularity polls. That's what the polls show.
The majority will not. And so, and here's another thing that's going to happen with Abbas. All of the Arab states are tired of this because their own populations now despise Israel and America so much that it's destabilizing their governments. So all of those Arab countries who want to deal with Israel, they want to go economically, et cetera. Saudi Arabia, the leaders of Saudi Arabia can't wait to do a deal with Israel. They've said that in 100 different ways. They're like, we don't care about the Palestinians, we just want the money, right? We want to do a deal with Israel, with America, et cetera, and get back to regularity. So all of those guys are going to put tremendous pressure on whoever the Palestinian negotiator is to get a deal. America's going to put enormous pressure. I think the Palestinian diaspora, the Muslim world is going to put a lot of pressure to get a deal on the Palestinian side. So that is your best chance. And so if you do a vote on Abbas before you start, he has no chance. If he gets them a state and gets them freedom, and then you do a vote, then he has a terrific.
I just don't understand. You can't get a state and get freedom when you don't have a mandate from the people to negotiate on your behalf, and Abbas doesn't.
So that's okay. So good. So Destiny, good question. And do we have a mandate from the Palestinians? So guys, I want you to think this through. Again, like if you're on the Israeli side and you want Israel to be a safe haven for Jews as it was designed to be, think through how are you going to get there? So right now, if you say, well, the Palestinians hate the Jews, Well, a lot of them do. You're not wrong about that. Now, why do they? You say, oh, general anti-Semitism, we're the victims. Look, you're kidding yourself. You're totally, utterly kidding yourself. There is anti-Semitism all across the world. That's true. Jews have been victims all throughout history. That is totally true. But if you think the Palestinians hate you purely because of ancient hatred and anti-Semitism, you've gotten totally detached from reality. They hate you because you've been occupying them for 75 years, and you've been brutalizing them and humiliating.
See, the Cenk is going down a road of justification that I'm very suspect of. I wonder if he gives any onus to the Palestinians. I'm curious. I'm gonna see the flow of conversation regarding what happened, because from my knowledge, there was an opportunity to establish a two-state solution very, very early on, and the Palestinians said no. So, all right, let's see what happens.
Them and killing them. No people on earth wouldn't hate you under that circumstance. And it doesn't matter whether you take out Israel, Jewish, and you put in Buddhist and Thailand. It doesn't matter. Anyone who's being occupied, of course, is going to hate you. So if in the middle of that occupation, in the middle of that war, in the middle of that hatred, you go, no, I'm not going to deal with them because they don't like me enough. Well, then you're never going to get the peace.
It's not about dealing with somebody because hold on, it's not about dealing with somebody because you don't like them enough. I'm just saying that the Palestinian people aren't going to accept any negotiations that Abbas is doing.
That's what I'm getting at, Destiny. But if you think because of that hatred, the Palestinians don't want peace, you're totally wrong. Totally, utterly wrong.
Okay, no, but to be clear,
they want two-state solution.
I don't. That's not supported in any of the polling data that Palestinians want a two-state solution. And when you say that people want peace, I think peace is a reductionist argument. People don't want peace. People want justice, right? If Israel would offer Palestinians a two-state,
let me look this up. Right. All right, I'm gonna look this up. You gotta see me look it up. Polling data of Palestinians wanting peace, I guess. I don't know what else I could put in there. And yes, I use Bing. Shout out Bing. I have an Xbox. I get free credits. You feel me? So don't hate on me. Palestinians show a rise in Hamas support in close to 90. This is from December 13th, 2023. So it is a while ago, but that's the first link that popped up. Can I get a chart? I don't want to read all this. Can I just get a chart? If I can't get a chart, then I'm just going to move on. I need images, my boys. Whatever. I guess I'm going to read. For Israel and others who have blah, blah. Poll offered little reason for optimism. It found that 72% of respondents approve of Hamas' decision to launch the October 7th attack. I'm not signing up for that, my boy. Okay, 72% is wild. Conducted between November 22nd and December 2nd in the West Bank and Gaza Strip, reached 1231 adults in face-to-face interviews. Margin of error of around 4%. 72%. In other words, the establishment of a Palestinian state alongside Israel slightly since the last edition of the polls and stands at 34%, though 70% of respondents don't think U.S. efforts toward that outcome are serious. Support for Hamas as a movement, according to softer than support for its actions. In addition, support for two-state solution, in other words, the establishment of a Palestinian state along Israel, have risen slightly. That's only 34% that want a two-state solution. That's not even over 50%. To be fair, this is in December, but like how much has changed since December 20th? Oh, well, this actually was taken between November 22nd and December 2nd to be more precise. Interesting. So yeah, the polls don't support Cenk's argument at all, to be honest. All right, well, let's move on. Dun, dun, dun.
State solution where all of them move into the Gaza Strip, and that would cause peace. Like, nobody would be happy with that. They wouldn't consider that a just resolution to the issues that they face. I think that the issue is that Israel historically, I say historically, not even, like in the attempts to negotiate peace for the Palestinians, it feels like the people that get most support from Palestinians are radical groups like Hamas or radical actors, not people like Abbas, not the Palestinian Authority, which I think is historically unpopular with Palestinians, or Abbas, who's incredibly unpopular. And I think that issue, I don't know how you deal with it exactly, because it's a very complicated, like top-down, like religious, cultural, political, social issue that you have to deal with in terms of like bringing the Palestinians like to a calmer place, that has to happen before any kind of negotiations happen. Because again, like, I mean, going back to the start of this, you can't negotiate with Hamas. Nobody would expect anybody to. That just can't happen. Your leadership can't be Hamas. And if Palestinians hold free elections and they elect more terrorist groups, what are you going to do? How do you negotiate with that group of people? It just doesn't. It can't happen.
So, Destiny, you got it backwards. Okay, so in my opinion. So let me explain. Whenever there's a conflict, war, occupation, etc., going on, the radicals will always win. So you saw it in Iraq, where the most radical groups got to be the strongest, because in the middle of America bombing Iraq, the Iraqis weren't going to magically go, God, we love America. Let's pick some moderate Shia Muslim leaders to negotiate with the Americans about
Which
how
is
much
a
they're
fair
gonna kill us
point.
and how
You're
much they're
pushing
gonna
them
take our oil,
further
etc.
to the
No, they're
radicals.
gonna do
That's
what
a fair
every human
thing to
does, which
say.
is, who's going to kill them the most? They're killing us. Who's going to kill them? Oh, you guys, the most radical guys, want to kill them the most? We're with you. That's what happens with every human being in every conflict. Okay, so in that cauldron, if you say, I can't believe they picked a radical group, that's it. I'm not negotiating with them. You'll never get to war. You'll never get to peace. That's just a fact. So on the other hand, if you get on the road to peace, and my God, if you got to peace, will they stay radical forever? Now, if you say that, it's almost a racist position. Like, once you get to peace and security and justice, you're right, it depends on the contours of the deal. If at that point you think the Palestinians will still attack you, you're basically saying, I don't think they're like other human beings. I think they're violent savages and nothing will appease them.
No, they don't have to be violent savages to be motivated to enact violence against Israel just because of the group of these people in the history that has involved like Israel and Palestine. Like the reality is for the entirety.
By the way, it's totally mangled.
What's mangled?
So the Israelis, not Israelis, Jews and Muslims, including Palestinians, live there for
We're not. No one. I don't. So
in
for
peace.
the way that I don't care about Jews and Muslims. I don't think that's relevant here. I think what's relevant are Israelis and Palestinians. Jews.
It's very interesting with the situation because I do agree with Cenk in the sense that the idea that the people of Palestine are going to click and have a certain level of awakening and logical realism and understanding that Hamas is the reason, or Hamas is going to be basically, what am I trying to say? Hamas is not the reason. Well, I guess you could argue the reason why other countries won't make deal with us, but if the people of Gaza, and I'm working through this, I had something and now it just completely disappeared. If the people of Palestine are, let's say, okay, they didn't like the situation, something happened, the radical group did what they did, and then the people like Israel was like, okay, we got to respond, and you're here's like, man, I mean, you guys were kind of treating us like shit, and then they did something without our knowledge, but now you're bombing us, and like, I mean, maybe they're right, maybe you guys do suck, maybe I do want you to die. So that's just gonna be that is just what's going to happen at the end of the day. So the expectation that the people are going to have some type of awakening and understanding that they need to kick Hamas out is a bit unrealistic. I do agree with Cenk there. I eventually got to my thoughts. So I'm gonna let the conversation continue.
Jews and Muslims did live together, even in this very region, kind of happily. But the issue is that, by their perception, European people came in who were also Jews and then created the state of Israel, and this is where a lot of the issues come from. But I mean, I don't know how relevant that is to today. The reality is the Palestinian people that are there don't like the Israeli people that are there. I don't think that it's an anti-Semitic-driven hatred for them, although that bleeds into a lot of it since now Palestinians aligned with so many anti-Semitic and extremist groups like Hezbollah or the Houthis or Iran. But I think that the only way, like, I can't think of. So here's like an idea that I have. I don't know if this is actually true or not, but my guess for why radicals always win when it comes to rising up against countries is probably because radicals don't stay in power for very long. You've got coups, you've got radicals, they take over a government that's failing, but then eventually, inevitably, radical groups never hold power for long. Once they fail, something more stable happens for a long period of time. It's always those stable regimes that start to fail that have radicals come up that are offering something different in order to convince the people that we should try this instead. But I don't think you can negotiate peace with radicals and then just slowly over time turn them moderate. And also, if you're an Israeli citizen, why would you ever think that would happen, given the entire history of like your two states existing next to each other has been violence?
Yeah. So I'll address your questions, which I think are good ones, in a second. But Destiny, you see that you seem to be saying Mahmoud Abbas is perceived as a moderate collaborator, so we can't negotiate with him because he won't have the credibility. And Hamas is radicals, so we can't negotiate with them. It seems like you've eliminated every negotiation.
I do think that, yes, they will obviously still have their feelings, of course, but I still think you can broker peace with them, especially if you make some type of deal where certain power is taken away from them in terms of potential the ability to make any kind of attacks on Israel, specifically being the neighbors. So I don't necessarily agree that you can't eventually the people eventually can't turn into more a moderate perspective if peace is brokered in a very specific way.
Negotiating partner. And if you want further war and occupation, that's pretty convenient. I don't think you want that. So help me understand who you think can be a partner for the Palestinians.
Something that I thought was a really cool idea that I saw floated on Twitter that supposedly Egypt, Israel, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia were talking about. I don't know if this actually amounted to anything, it was true, but it was the idea of another country stepping in and them hosting a government basically there. That Saudi Arabia would send somebody to the West Bank and they would serve as trying to create a transitional government. I think that sounds like an interesting idea, although I can see a billion ways that would go wrong, but at least it would lend some credence or some stability to a government there. But I can't even imagine how Iran would respond to that or what that would look like. Again, I can see a million ways of it going wrong, but Abbas can't be negotiated with because the Palestinian people. Cenk, I'm sorry, but at no point in human history has anybody negotiated with somebody with no mandate from the people. You just can't do it. Even Arafat himself was pressured by his thought of losing a mandate from the people for negotiating.
Look, you're totally assuming it. You're assuming that the Palestinians don't want 2 states. They don't want peace, and that's a crazy assumption.
But it's supported by all the polling data.
But
yeah, polling data. I already showed y'all. Y'all here. So I already showed y'all. I'm sorry, Cenk. From the polling data, even though it's only from what I've seen, the sample size wasn't truly representative of everybody. But if the people that are willing to talk, not in support of it, that kind of says a lot. The people, so or potentially they're in fear of saying what they truly think. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Wait, how do you wrestle with it? How do you wrestle with the fact that the majority of Palestinians, when polled, support?
Of course. If in the middle of my family being murdered, you ask me, do you support the murderers? I'm going to say no, I don't support the murderers.
And I agree with you. But they've seen Israel as being the murderers for 67.
You're changing the argument, Cenk. I'm sorry for pausing. I'm not going to pause for the next like 10 minutes. But you're missing the point, Cenk. The polls say that they don't even support a 2-state solution. That's what the polls are showing.
Many years, or for the entirety of them existing here.
And then you say, hey, Cenk, look, in that unfortunate analogy, your family got butchered. Do you love the guys who butchered? No, I don't. I hate them. And do you like the people who work with them? No, I hate them. Now, do you want it to stop? Well, yeah, I do want it to stop. Okay, so now how are we going to get it to stop? Now are you in favor of that guy stopping it or that guy stopping it? Well, now that's a different question than do I love the people who butchered my family.
We have to. Okay, I feel like this is a very Western imposition when we say stop and when we say peace. And I'm trying to get people to move off this. Nobody in the world ever wants peace. MLK didn't want peace, right? We talk about like the uneasy tension that exists when there's peace but not justice. What people want is justice. The problem is when you look at Israel and you look at Palestine, their definitions of peace oftentimes are highly conflicting. For Israel, peace might mean where they annex parts of the West Bank, where they continue to push the Palestinians in increasingly smaller land, they control their airspace indefinitely, and then they make a 2-state solution where they're essentially occupying both states still, right? That might be peace for Israelis. Peace for Palestinians might be a 1-state solution where every single 6-7 million Palestinians get a right of return, they all get to come back, they get to vote, they get to create a Sharia law, Islamist government, and that's peace for them. When we talk about peace, that's not relevant. What's really relevant is what's justice for both sides. And as long as Palestinians' form of justice is, whether it's terrorist attacks or whether it's encouraging to fight against the Israeli government, this is the history of Palestine and Israel, is them constantly fighting against each other. And I don't know why we make this excuse for Palestinians where we're like, well, of course they don't support Abbas and they don't want to negotiate because their family's been killed. That's where all the right-wing governments in Israel came from, was from Palestinian terrorist attacks, especially the Second Intifada from 2004. There's like the biggest radicalizing moment for so many Israelis. I don't know why we don't grant them the same leeway. Like, okay, obviously Israelis are super radicalized as well.
Obvious reason why, Destiny. I mean, come on, you're a smart guy. One side is occupying the other side. So for you to say, oh, they're all equal, I can't believe the Palestinians didn't accept their occupation and fought back. That is just, they're just so radical and nuts, right? And it's definitely their fault. And the other side goes, what? I was just occupying them for 75 years. What? I can't believe they attacked me. No, there's one side that is definitely guilty overall, and that is Israel for doing the occupation for 75 freaking years. I mean, and if you don't get that the occupation is the core of the problem here, you're trying not to get it. You're trying to avoid the problem because you kind of want the occupation. And so be honest with yourself. And I'm addressing.
I'm curious what the occupation means to them, and I would be willing to kind of go down a line of like research on what exactly does the occupation mean in particular. Now obviously after October 7th, there was a lot of resources taken away from the Palestinians. But before that, what exactly did it mean? What did exactly happen to the people in Gaza? What exactly was the drawbacks, the negatives? I would be very interested in going down that, because obviously the word occupation is very loaded, but depending on the circumstance, depending on what was actually happening, matters the most in this conversation.
On is not you specifically, Destiny. So as long as the people are occupied, they are going to fight back. If you deny that, you're just on a different planet. Like
I don't disagree that the occupation is a thing that bothers a lot of Palestinians and drives them towards more radical position.
Yeah.
But I think one thing you don't understand is a lot of Palestinians consider Israelis present in the Levant, in this area, to always be an occupation. For some of them, a two-state solution is an occupation still. And I think for Israelis, I think the worry is that even if you did tomorrow negotiate a two-state solution, not only would the attacks not stop, now they're going to be elevated because now they've got their own country to launch attacks from. Now when we go and attack them, now we have to like declare war, and it's going to be a whole other thing. Why would Israeli citizens, what faith would they have that Palestinians would be peaceful after a negotiated two-state solution if Israel just right now acquiesced to all of their demands?
So two things about that, Destiny. Number one, if you stretch that out, that means if we ever give them a state, we think they're going to attack us more, so we're never going to give them a state. And that is actually exactly what Israel's doing. So then you're permanently the bad guys. I know it breaks your heart to think of it that way, and you won't accept it. No. Occupying 5 million people and humiliating them daily and just rubbing their face, we're in charge. You don't get to be free. You're always going to serve us. But you should love it. Okay? So no, the
Serve
occupation
us?
is definitely the core of the problem. Now, if you say, hey, wait a minute, the Israelis want
Cenk makes the occupation sound like slavery, to be honest. And then, I don't know, maybe he's right. I would have to look into it.
peace afterwards and justice, and if the Palestinian state then attacks Israel, okay, but then I'm 100% on Israel's side. And so then we have a completely different dynamic. But if you say, because they might attack us, even after we do peace and justice, I'm never going to give them a state, you're saying I'm going to be permanently the bad guy, permanently the occupier, permanently the oppressor.
Okay, wait, I'm curious.
Fact.
Let's say right
That's
now,
a fact, right?
let's say that, I mean, in a very reductionist way, kind of, let's say that Palestinians had a state, and it was a combined state of the Gaza Strip. And
I don't
the West Bank.
disagree with
Let's
what
say that
Cenk
this
just
was
said, to
granted
be
them,
honest.
a year ago. And then let's say that October 7th happens again. Would you support the current Israeli invasion into the Gaza Strip? Everything else the same. The same number, 25, 35, whatever thousand deaths, 20 to 30% were Hamas militants. Would you support the same Israeli military operation to the Gaza Strip if they were their own country?
So that's a really good question, and I have two answers to that. One is, I would accept it a lot more than the current situation.
But it sounds like you wouldn't accept it. I don't think you would. I think you'd be making the exact same.
I'm getting to that.
Okay.
I'm getting to the second part, right? So number one, I accept it more because, well, brother, you gave them everything they asked for. They still attack you. I get it, right? And so that's point one. Point two is, no, even in that situation, does there come a point, Destiny, and I would flip this back to you, where you're 200-pound guy with giant muscles, and the other kid's like 80 pounds, and you've already punched them in the face 20 times. Now everybody's looking around. The first time he punched you and you punched him back, people were like, totally get it. You punched him back twice, 4 times, people were like, okay, I still get it. He started the fight. On the 20th time, you're like, please, brother, okay, you were right. You were right to attack them because they attacked you. But stop hitting him in the face. You're going to kill him. This is getting grotesque. So is there a point where it gets to be too much? Of course, it would be under any situation where you've got a war between two countries.
Okay.
Right?
Okay, but like,
I see Cenk's point.
No,
right?
What?
But at some point, that the country that was attacked has counterattacked
Gone too
so
far.
badly that you say,
I don't,
okay, enough,
I
enough.
don't evaluate conflicts and counterattacked so badly or number of people killed. I'm thinking of like mission objectives, which I think is how every single commander everywhere in the history of all of warfare thinks.
You're not wrong. See, this is a disconnect where, and I think I said this at the beginning of the video, where Destiny's looking at it in a more logical side. So I waited for him to kind of be clear on his stance, and I understand his stance because I probably would think the same way. But that's why people like Cenk are so important, because they're thinking about it at the very humanitarian side, the humanistic side, which is very fair. And honestly, that's why I said it's like 50-50 in terms of the value. So having people like Cenk is important, because if we start discounting lives as numbers, that's when we get into a lot of crap, right? So yeah, this is a type of contention that's really hard to find a right side necessarily, if you get where I'm coming from. But I'll let them continue.
Of warfare. It's not just by number of deaths or whatever. It's by military objective, which is, in this case, it's decapitating what they consider to be a terrorist government or a terrorist group.
But you know that's impossible, right?
It's not impossible. I don't think so. No, of course
you
not.
think they're going to kill enough Hamas members? And at this rate, that means minimum like 55,000 dead Palestinians.
We don't know 100% how many. I mean, now that the ground invasion has started, I mean, the civilian deaths have slowed down quite a bit, or the
No, they
I should
haven't.
say
150
Palestinians.
today. It's 150 every day.
Yeah, it's better than
Look,
700 to
that's what we
1,000 a day in the
position.
early conflict. Like the deaths were way higher under the airstrikes. You can look, you can plot, you can see all the deaths per day. There are still Palestinians dying every day, but the numbers have fallen off quite a bit compared to when the invasion started. But I don't think, with what you said, and I know you're saying you might support the invasion, although it sounds like you've given a lot of reasons why you wouldn't support the invasion. I don't think so. I don't think anybody supports.
Attacked by an independent country. Of course, they get the counterattack. Of course.
No, it's not just a counterattack. You keep trying to make this sound like it's a tit for tat. That's not how this works. Like, Israel wants to be a secure country. If you're getting attacked by somebody, you have a military objective afterwards. Their military objective is to not get attacked by them anymore. It's not like, well, you killed 1,200 of our people. We're going to go do it October 8th into your territory and kill 1,200 of your people. That's not how it works. That's not how it ever works.
I don't think that's what Cenk was saying. To be fair, I can see why Destiny would bring that up, because based off what like Cenk said, he's like, okay, they attacked us, so I can attack you back. Okay, what is the purpose of the attack? What are you trying to resolve? The initial attack is obviously attack for potentially, if you had to dive into the Palestinian mindset, is we want more of Israel's land because that is where obviously the Holy Land is at, of course. So that's their objective. That is what they're trying to do. When it comes to Cenk, or when it comes to the other side in terms of Israel, the idea would be, I don't want you attacking anymore, so I'm eliminating all your leaders. So I understand where Destiny kind of went through in terms of the line of dialogue. But I don't think Cenk was just trying to make it, oh, I'm just attacking you because you attacked me. I do think he's probably, well, I'm not going to speak for him, but I think he does realize that there needs to be a purpose behind the attack. I'm pretty sure, but I mean,
So,
let me
Destiny,
listen.
we got attacked on 9/11. We then attacked Afghanistan for 20 years. We attacked Iraq, which had nothing to do with it. And we killed and killed and killed and killed. And did we accomplish our objective? 20 years later, people were like, no, I can't believe we left Afghanistan. We didn't accomplish the objective. Because if you like war, you're never going to
I think
accomplish
so.
the
To be
objective.
precise on that, I think we did accomplish a righteous objective, which was essentially the decapitation of Al Qaeda. I think we did a really good job of that. The problem was that we had other missions that were stupid. One was the deposing of Saddam Hussein, and then the other two were the nation-building adventures that we went on in Afghanistan and Iraq. I think that those three things were not good, and I didn't see a good justification for them. But I think that eliminating Al Qaeda in Afghanistan, I thought that was a good thing to do. I think. I'm like,
Oh, absolutely. But did we actually target Al Qaeda? Now we're going to get too deep into that. But real quick, no, Rumsfeld turned down a U.S. general's.
Wait a second. I think it's probably worth just moving on to the Houthis. Just talking about that. Just quickly addressing that. By the way, just apologies. The Wi-Fi and electricity all just turned off in my building, so I had to.
See, based on like Cenk's response, he understands that, yeah, eliminating Al Qaeda was very valuable. So that's why I don't think he just thinks that we should attack. I do think he thinks there needs to be purpose. But he did bring up a point, is like, what is the objective? Did we solve the objective? Do they ever solve the objective? Is the question, right? But I think from Cenk's point of view, I think if there is an objective, ideally, I'm okay if they solve their objective. I think that's what he's saying. I think
Russia
that's
elsewhere, and all the lights.
That's okay. But look, I got to ask Destiny a question.
Okay, quickly, then we'll move on to the Houthis. Yeah.
So when you talk about accomplishing objectives and you say it's just slaughter Hamas, and we'll kind of know when we slaughtered them enough, but in the meanwhile we're just slaughtering innocent Palestinians. But I'm good with it because we're accomplishing a military objective. I really want to ask you: are you like 150 largely innocent, meaning like the great majority of them, even according to the IDF, are innocent civilians? 150 of them, even in the reduced rate, die every day. To me, that breaks my and Destiny. If 150 Israelis were dying every single day, and we're like, now Palestinians didn't accomplish their objective. They still don't have a two-state solution. Kill another 150 Israelis. Kill another 150 Israelis. Kill another 150 Israelis. I don't think you'd be good with it. I don't think America would be good with it. I don't
absolutely
think anybody
right.
would be good
I'm
with it.
not good with it.
But
It's
with the
horrible.
Palestinians,
150
they're not really
Palestinians.
human. So
I
I'm
don't know
good
where
with
this not really human thing comes out from. I don't know if you actually do have some anti-Semitism bleeding out of this. I don't know why you keep bringing that up. I don't think anybody's arguing for the anti-humanness of Palestinians. This is a very real
No, but you
geopolitical
don't care if
conflict
they
that doesn't
die.
mean. I do care if they die. Hamas doesn't care if they die, and Hamas is the owner of the region, and Hamas is the one conducting warfare. I don't
No,
know
but
why
you
we're
say,
so
like-
critical of the
no, you're
defending
saying,
country
like,
here
so
when Hamas is the
Israel-
one that has Hamas
Oh,
has
I know.
popular
Yeah.
support of the Palestinians.
See, again, this is a disconnect between the two that they will never be bridged. I am more like Destiny and how he would go about it, a more logical circumstance. Yeah, we understand that people are dying. Obviously it's very important, but the objective is more valuable. That's how the military works, and I used to be in the military, and I think about that in general. Honestly, if I actually went down the route to be an officer, I might be one of those very brutally honest individuals. I'm just gonna be completely transparent with you because of how my mind works, right? That's why I say, and I'm gonna praise it because people like Cenk are intrinsically valuable to the conversation of caring about Palestinian lives, about caring about the innocents, about caring about those numbers, but they're not numbers, they're people. It's they both need to be in the conversation. What needs to happen is we need to reach a point of compromise at the end. That's what needs to happen for the most part. Yeah, you get the job done, but is it possible to reach peace sooner if we didn't just think about these people's numbers? Is it possible to decrease the number of casualties and civilians? It's something to think about.
Hamas operates out of the Gaza Strip, and Hamas does infinite attacks against civilians. Hold on, you wanted me to answer the question. You asked me if I care that civilians are dying. I do. I think it's horrible that civilians are dying, but the responsibility there rests with Hamas. And if anything, we're the Palestinians that continue to support Hamas, which unfortunately is still the majority of the Palestinians. That is a big issue, and that has to be dealt with before we ask Israel to just roll over and grant them infinite peace as a reward for the October 7th attack, and then pray that they don't attack them in the future. Even though if they did attack them in the future, people like you would still say, well, you don't have the right to do that, just like you were probably against the Saudi-led coalition going after the Houthis in Yemen, even though the Houthis in Yemen are shooting ballistic missiles into Riyadh. You're going to say the exact same thing. Well, no, there's a famine, there's a humanitarian crisis, there are too many civilians dying, like that attack. Israel is still the big guy. Israel's still the 200-pound guy against the 120-pound guy, even if they're two separate states. So no, I don't agree that giving them a separate state achieves anything for Israel. I don't even think it gives them better humanitarian standing for people internationally like you that would criticize them regardless. And I just don't see any reason. I think it's absolutely true. But
why the hell would I criticize Israel after they make a peace deal and they have two states? Well, that doesn't even make any sense.
You would criticize them for this same counterattack if Hamas continued to attack them from the Palestinian state.
No, I said you could do a counterattack, but there comes a point where you've murdered enough.
So wait, so counterattacks are just measured? Is a counterattack just measured in human life then? If they kill 1,000 of my citizens, I go kill 1,000 of theirs. Is that the point of a counterattack?
No, your point is endless war, and you just admitted.
I didn't say endless war. You want endless war. You're saying because if you kill,
they're going to attack anyway because they're savages, right?
No,
how many are you going to murder, Destiny?
However many it takes to complete the mission.
Because
daily. You're
asking. That's a fact. I'm in favor of no Israelis dying, none, zero. You're in favor of 150 Palestinians being murdered every single day because you didn't accomplish your totally impossible objective of decapitating Hamas.
Cenk, when you see the IDF in Gaza right now, do you not see them as what they're trying to do, which is trying to wipe out Hamas, or do you think they're just trying to kill Palestinians for no reason?
No, I think they're trying to punish collective punishment of the Palestinians.
Yeah, I don't know how you reached this conclusion. I'm be honest. Cenk has a very much more black-pilled perspective. I think Cenk thinks that all conflict is conflict to just raise chaos. I don't think he really cares about the. If you're gonna run for president, shouldn't you consider that? I don't. Shouldn't you consider the idea is that yes, a lot of people die, but as a president, you have to make very harsh decisions to accomplish the mission? I don't think Cenk.
I think they're barely trying to get Hamas. They've barely been in the tunnels. They've rescued no hostages. They've murdered hostages.
Wait, hold on. How can you say
Palestinians wantonly on tape with your own eyes, and then you tell us, oh, golly gee, they meant to shoot someone else, but they just accidentally murdered 27,000 Palestinians. They are the best military in the world, but they always
Nobody's
miss.
saying that.
Oh, there goes another civilian. Boy, they were really trying not to kill them. Come on. Again, if you're an Israeli supporter,
a very disingenuous way to think about the military.
But the rest of the world doesn't believe that.
Nobody. Hold on. The rest of the first of all, if Israel was trying to just kill civilians, a 2 or 4 to 1 ratio.
Also, I have to look it up. I already told you about the 3-step hostage plan that Israel's trying to do. Let me look this up. Has Israel rescued any hostages? Let me get a source. Let me get a more specific link. January 19 Reuters. I don't know how you guys feel about that. If they're legitimate. Here's an article that says here's why Israeli attempt to rescue the 150 hostages. So did they not save any hostages yet? Rescue. I know they have a plan, but I don't know if they didn't save anybody. In different locations. Let me click on this. Let me see if a significant number of Israeli civilian soldiers being held hostage. Shows Israelis being taken from homes. Have reportedly freed Israeli civilians who are being held hostage in 2 locations in the south. So technically they have, but I guess the main ones in Gaza that people are talking about have yet to be officially saved. Like I said, they are trying to do a 3-step peace plan regarding it. So technically, from what I saw, Cenk is wrong. So
of civilian to fighter death, for civilian to Hamas militant death in a highly urban environment completely betrays that entire analysis. If they were trying to just kill civilians, they're doing the worst job of any invading power in a highly urban environment ever. Why wouldn't they have killed 100,000 or 500,000 civilians? If they really wanted to just kill as many civilians as possible, why did they only kill 20? What, has it even gotten to 30,000 yet? Why have they killed so few?
Oh, it hasn't even been 30,000. Can you imagine if we said about Israelis? They didn't even.
This is a very nasty way to talk about the situation. Cenk goes like, oh, they're trying to kill civilians, and Desi's like, they could have killed more. Like, I don't know what we're really talking about, to be honest. This is a very disingenuous way to think about it from both sides, to be honest. I think there needs to be an understanding where, one, is it possible that certain IDF soldiers could do more than needs to be done? Yes, it is possible. But two, in a military situation where anything can happen, casualties just happen. Let's not pretend that in a hostile environment that casualties won't happen, especially when you don't know who is who, when you can't really truly identify if it's a Hamas individual or a Palestinian one, especially when Palestine heavily supports Hamas. So pretty nasty work, my boy.
Killed 30,000 Israelis. They only killed 1,200 Israelis. What's the big deal? Because that is what Israel's doing. They killed 1,200.
Why have they only killed? Why have they killed so few? Why have they killed so few?
Now it takes a whole week to kill 1,200 Palestinians, but no one cares.
Why, first of all,
dead Palestinians are irrelevant to the West, because that's why I make the point about non-humans.
No, that's not true. Dead Palestinians
being killed, you would be livid. But when a Palestinian is being killed, you just genuinely don't.
No, Cenk, I think that's not the point Destiny's trying to make. What he's trying to say is, why, if Israel really were just trying to kill Palestinians and they were just punishment, couldn't they kill so many more people?
Yeah. So that's an easy talking point. Yes, there's a difference between genocide and Holocaust. If anyone says Israel's trying to do a Holocaust where they're trying to kill every single Palestinian, that is obviously not true, right? If they wanted to kill every Palestinian, they could, obviously, right? So then the question is, yes, but are they targeting Palestinians, which is the definition of genocide, and killing them in a disproportionate way? Yes, obviously.
You said the whole point of what they're doing is trying to kill Palestinians.
No. Okay, so let's be super clear. So do they have an ostensible objective? I mean, they never go in the tunnels. They barely ever kill Hamas. They never rescue.
What do you mean barely kill Hamas? 20 to 30% of the deaths so far been attributed to Hamas fighters. How is that barely killing them?
Yeah, like they've never showed any, anyway.
They never showed any what? They showed tons of video footage of tons of different things, but okay.
Okay, all right. So, but even by their own admission, they killed 2/3 civilians, and that is the best case scenario.
Which isn't bad, given that it's highly urban warfare. Those ratios are about what you'd expect them to be.
What? You're good with Hamas, because Hamas killed 2/3 civilians.
Hamas wants to kill civilians.
No, but what do you mean? They killed troops and they killed civilians at the same exact rate as the IDF.
I don't think it was. I think it was like 5-1 or more. Wasn't it 1,200 people killed and 200 were military people?
Some odd civilians and 300 some odd soldiers. So
wait, how many civilians did you say?
It's terrible terrorism. When Israel does it, they had to. Murder.
Cenk, can you not make the distinction of Hamas going into Israel on October 7th, just trying to kill civilians for the sake of it, not any other mission? But then what Israel are doing? What?
Look, I hated that they killed civilians.
Yeah.
But they also killed troops. So it's like.
No, I understand that. But do you not see the difference in alternative motive between what the IDF are doing and what Hamas are doing?
No, first of all, I don't let me be clear. I don't believe the right-wing government of Israel when they say we're the world's worst army. Even though we have every capability in the world, we just keep missing. We just accidentally murdered 25 times the number of civilians as Hamas, the terrorists.
This back and forth is really not going anywhere. Not gonna lie.
Did I do it again? So what are they trying to do?
Keeps on
they're
trying to make the argument that
for vengeance. So they're plausible deniabilities. No, I sent guys there.
That they're
purposely
killing.
I tried to get the hostages a little bit, but as I was doing that, I murdered, and I dug up their cemeteries, and I took their ancestors, and I rubbed.
Hey,
Now,
yo,
a
I
quarter
am
of them,
back. I had to
500,000
school
people, are
someone in a
starving.
football debate.
80%
Don't
of the
worry
world's
about
people that
that.
are starving in the world are in Gaza right now. But if you think that's all an accident, they didn't mean to do any of that.
80% of the
But they
starving people in
did.
the world are in Gaza right now?
That's right, according to the United Nations. I know you're going to say, the United Nations is anti-Semitic. We don't count it. We don't count it. Nothing
Considering
counts.
the
Relax. 80% of the starving people are in Gaza? What does that mean? Like, what does that mean? I'm trying to. What does that mean exactly? Like, is there a threshold of starving and like? Wait, what?
population of Yemen is like 35 million people, and there are only 2 million people in Gaza. How can? And I'm like half the population of Yemen. That's just one country. That number is insane. There's no way that number is true.
Yes, I mean, it doesn't matter. You're good with it. You're good with the deaths. You're good with the starvation.
Wait. 80%. Wait, I gotta look this up. 80% of starvation in Gaza? I don't know what else to put in. Gazans now make up 80% of all people facing famine or catastrophic hunger worldwide, making unparalleled. Okay, let me read this. Let me read this. Over 100 days into the war, currently every single person in Gaza is hungry. A quarter of the population are starving and struggling to find food and drinkable water, and famine is imminent. Pregnant women are not receiving adequate nutrition and health care. Blah 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 blah. How do you get the number 80%? Nowhere is safe in Gaza. Since October 9th, Israel declared and imposed a total siege on Gaza, depriving 2.3 million Palestinians of water, food, fuel, medicine, and medical supplies, which before this war made approximately half of the people in Gaza food insecure and more than 80% reliant on humanitarian aid. So, like, what makes it 80%? I'm so confused. Like, because there's no way the number makes it 80%. 2 million people who are starving, facing. Gazans now make up 80% of all people facing famine or catastrophic hunger worldwide. So it's like. So it's only like. It's only like 2.5 million people in the world. I'm just throwing a number, like 2.8 million people in the world facing famine. Is like most people not facing famine. I'm so confused from this number. How is it? So really only like 2.8 million people are starving? Is that what this number is telling me? I'm really trying to figure this out. I'm really trying. I don't get the number. Because that seems kind of wild to me. So before this situation, we're like only like 500,000 people worldwide like starving. I'm really just throwing a number out there. I'm trying to figure that out. If you could tell me in the comment section like exactly what this means, I would appreciate it because I'm so confused. I am so confused on how that how many people, let me type this in. How many people worldwide are facing famine? So is famine just not an issue? This is a number from 2021. Keep this in mind. 2021. Recent analysis by the UN reveals 41 million people are teetering on the very edge of famine. So, okay. So I think I get it. So most of the world actually is not under famine. Maybe famine is such an extreme case there. I guess hunger is like at this level, famine is at this level. Most people are not under famine and catastrophic hunger, but there is still a lot of people that are under hunger, I think is what I'm learning. I think that is what it is. Well, we move anyway.
They haven't accomplished their objective yet. Their objective is vengeance and terrorism.
Then they're doing a really bad job of it. Why haven't they killed 400,000 Palestinians?
Because they wouldn't be able to get away with it. Okay,
so they're trying to kill indiscriminately, but only as much as they can get away from. But they've also managed to kill 25% of the civilians are militants. And
so your big defense of this genocide is, well, we didn't kill them all.
There is no genocide.
We didn't kill them all.
Yeah.
I mean, we butchered
You both have weird
27,000
positions
people,
right now,
but
I'll
we
be
didn't kill
honest.
them all. By the way, that's exactly what the Serbs could have said in Srebrenica. By the way, the Turks could have said it about the
Cenk is making it seem like they're trying to kill civilians, and Destiny saying they could have killed more. Like, this is not productive. I'll be honest. I think both are ridiculous positions. So we'll keep it
Armenian genocide.
Let's move
A
on.
question on your proposed plan. At what point would you say this is the IDF have actually accomplished their plan to eliminate Hamas, or how many? I know I asked you this in the last debate, but it's a really good question.
Unfortunately, I'm not.
Worth it.
Yeah, I don't know what the actual like military decision is when like the job is finished. I don't know if that includes like a certain amount of their leadership killed. I don't know if that includes like a loss of confidence from the Palestinian people, or if it includes like a certain percentage of fighters, or if it includes a certain percentage of whatever. I don't know how they do that military distinction.
Is there a certain mark of death that you're okay with, or it's just really whatever it takes to kill out?
I mean, like what I would be looking for basically is to make sure that the ratio of like basically the ratio of militants killed to civilians killed still seems to be falling within where you would expect it to be for combat like this, given the number of militants and the number of civilians. I don't think there's anything right now that's crazy out of whack, because if it's about like 1 militant killed for every 3 civilians, given how highly urbanized the conflict is, given how much Hamas hides among like the civilian population and operates out of the civilian population. So as long as the warfare continues to move in that direction, and hopefully there's no like major famine or anything that occurs in Gaza the same way that there has been in Yemen, then I mean I would probably continue to support the military operation, because with Hamas in the Gaza Strip, I mean what is our 6th Hamas-Israeli war? Like it's not going to stop. That's never going to stop. Hamas has been launching rockets constantly. We can use all the morally loaded, dogged or like bad terms we want about Israel being murderers or killing all Palestinians or blah, 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 blah. But the reality is this is what Hamas thinks about Israeli citizens. That's why they launch rockets every single day and have been for 15 years. It's why they celebrated October 7th. It's why their spokespeople say they want to do more and more October 7th. It's why they are committed to aligning with people that also want Israel destroyed, right? If you look at who are the Palestinian Hamas partners, it's the Houthis, it's Hezbollah, it's Iran. These people don't have moderate positions towards Israel, and they surely don't support 2-state solutions among themselves either, any more than they support North and South division in Yemen. So yeah, I mean, like right now, I don't know how it's going to happen or what has to happen if another Arab state has to take the reins on it, but something has to happen to slow down or calm down the feelings of the Palestinian people that are pushing them to want to fight so much. And Cenk's idea of having a boss be the negotiator, historically it doesn't work. You can't just pull a random person from Mexico and say, you are now the Mexican negotiator, and we're going to do trade agreements, and we're going to do state agreements, and we're going to do border. That just doesn't work. It can't work. It hasn't even worked in this region. No, you don't want peace. You're asking for an impossibility, which is for Israel to say, okay, you guys that have all been trying to kill us for however many years, we're just going to go ahead and hand the reins over to you to completely govern a state, and hope that despite the fact that you're being supported by terrorist groups that are shipping weapons to you and want to see our state destroyed, we hope that you're going to just become peaceful over time for reasons.
It's interesting how like Destiny's conversation with Shapiro was some way more civil. And maybe that's due to them being face to face. Maybe if Cenk and Destiny were face to face, it would be much more civil. But it's interesting that 2 people from the left are way more toxic than Shapiro and Destiny were, to be honest. I'm just saying it's interesting. It's
even though we're negotiating a peace agreement with somebody that even was popularly elected and still is seen as a tool of the Israeli government, but maybe with only 10% support, if we negotiate something with him, you guys will all accept it. That's just unrealistic. It would never happen.
I can't take it. I'm going to say something potentially offensive, but
okay.
That is just a dumb talking point. Every battle is between 2 sides who hate each other. If the Turks said to the Armenians, well, you guys still hate us, and they did. They hated us. You know why they hated us? Because we occupied them. Because we were an empire, and we did not give them rights. And we said, we are in charge, and you are not, and you should know your role. Turks rule over Armenians. If we said, I can't believe they hate us. I can't believe they attacked us. We have every right to murder them to no end.
I see what point Cenk is coming
genocide. From. And the fact that the Armenians hated us does not justify anything. You do a peace deal with the people who hate you. You don't do it with the people who love you. So this lunatic standard of, I will not do a peace deal until the Palestinians love me, is just total bull.
I'm kind of with Cenk in that. The expectation that the Palestinians will ever calm down, I think is a bit unrealistic. I have to see if there's a precedent where we've ever allowed that, but I feel like anytime you have to broker peace, you broker peace either 1, because you completely annihilated the other side, or 2, because peace is the only way forward and you still don't like each other. You just understand that you have to move forward. I don't know.
Shit.
It's
It's
not
tough.
about them
I don't
loving
want a
you.
peace
It's about
deal.
you
I
have the
just
way
wanna
that you
murder
do
them.
peace deals is by eliminating their will to fight. That is how a peace deal
Oh
is
my
done.
God.
If they
How
still
many
want to
people are
fight,
gonna murder Destiny?
how many died in World War
people
II?
do you
How many
want to
Soviet
murder?
citizens were killed by the Germans? How many Nazis were killed? How many German
So,
citizens
yeah,
were killed in the
you're
Dresden
saying,
bombings?
yes, you
How
do
many
wanna murder
Japanese
more.
people were killed in the
You
Tokyo
do
bombings?
wanna murder more.
No, you
You
want
do
your
wanna murder
your
more.
Jank is being too morally loaded because Destiny's making a logical point, but Jank is coming at it at an emotional level, and Destiny's coming at it a very logical one. But are there situations where you can say that peace was brokered despite the violence? Peace was brokered without the situation where one side basically got annihilated, like I said. I would have to really think about any conflicts where that took place, right? Where it's like, this is not going anywhere. We have to kind of end it. Would you consider the Civil War a situation where one side gave up the will to fight? It's very interesting. I would have to really, really think about. I feel like I don't think every conflict was that. I think it's more so understanding that fighting won't serve any inherent purpose. Like if Russia and Ukraine were to end, it wouldn't end due to Russia and Ukraine not wanting to fight. And you know what makes this interesting is I feel like Destiny is on the side that America should get involved to broker peace, even though they both want to still fight. So I think Destiny doesn't truly believe that. I'm gonna let it continue though.
Talking
That's a
about-
fact, and you just said it.
Okay.
I want to murder no Israelis. Never.
None.
Ever,
Okay.
ever.
So in
But
World War
you guys
II,
wanna murder Palestinians every day.
in
That's a fact.
World War II, you would have negotiated peace with Nazi Germany. Is that what you would have wanted to do?
It's total apples and oranges.
Okay,
The
no,
Nazis-
hold on. We hate
No,
each other.
no,
You don't
no.
negotiate peace with people you like. You negotiate peace with people you hate. So for Nazi Germany,
Of course you do.
so we really hate the Nazis. Would you negotiate peace with Nazi Germany in World War II instead of going to war?
So Destiny, this is your favorite stupid analysis.
I'm gonna ask the exact. Hold on, it's
gotta
okay.
stop saying.
Ask it, Tom. Go ahead, do it.
Okay,
I'm gonna ask the
sorry.
same
I was
question when
wrong.
you finish your rant, though. I'm gonna ask
Okay,
you:
let
would
me-
you
let me
negotiate
answer.
peace with
Let me
Nazi
answer.
Germany? Go ahead.
So the Nazis were in the middle. Of murdering 6 million Jews and 13 million innocent people, let alone the millions that died in the war. So if in the middle of their murder, somebody said, hey, let's give them what they want, that would have been dumb.
So like
But if
right
at
after
the end-
October
hold on,
7th?
hold on, you asked the question and I'm answering it. But when the Germans stopped fighting back, okay, and you could say, hey, I want Hamas. And the difference between Hamas and the Nazis is that the Nazis had a massive army. So when they fought, they killed thousands and thousands and eventually millions, right? The Palestinians have peace shooters. So they're like, oh, well, technically one came over. Okay, nobody got hurt and we have Iron Dome, but good enough. I want to just keep going. No, you get to peace at some point. But you don't do it while the Nazis are butchering people. That is that is a
Correct.
legitimate war to protect those people.
So you have to
But right
just-
now,
I don't know. I feel like this conversation is not going forward, and I'm losing so much interest. I'll be honest. Maybe I should watch the end, but I've lost all interest because I don't think anything is being productive here. But I am curious: are there any conflicts that you would consider where both sides still wanted to fight, but they brokered peace anyway? And I feel like the Ukraine situation is a perfect example of that. I don't know. That's just my feeling. That's all I got. I'm sorry. I know there's only like what 18 minutes left. I don't want to watch the video anymore. So with that said, hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what y'all think. I think for the most part there was interesting elements from both sides. I think they both have a point, to be honest. But their approaches are so different that they won't kind of come to a compromise, to be honest. So with that said, y'all have a good one. Take care and peace.